Oh, geez. That's not a bad fish. That's not a small fish. Good job. Good job.
Silver.
The time for lake trout is right now. They've been hitting hot and heavy around the Great Lakes. Where that laker was taken was off of Leland, a little picturesque fishing community up here in the Leelanau Peninsula. They can duck behind the Manitous. Jack Duffy says they only have about 2 or 3 blow days a year. Great fishing all the time. We're going to take you lake trout fishing. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night. Time for Michigan Outdoors. Remnants of a booming commercial fishery. That's what you see in the little community of Leland, Michigan, nestled on the western shore of the Leelanau Peninsula. It's an artist community now, a favorite place of painters and photographers, and you can see why. Picturesque is almost an understatement. Carlson still does a little commercial fishing from here. A few charter boats are docked at the wharf, but the parking lot and launching ramp are rarely crowded with anglers. Just too far from the big cities, I guess. But the short stretch of river from Lake Leelanau spilling into Lake Michigan is crowded with fish. In June, alewives and baitfish hover in thick schools under the docked boats. Seagulls flock in to feed on these smaller fish, and out in the open water, trout and salmon feed on the free-swimming schools. Years ago, it was commercial fishing that built Leland, but now it's sightseeing and tourism that really keeps it going. And a few sport fishermen. Our Michigan Outdoors crew took 5 limits of lake trout in less than 2 hours a few weeks ago, proof that the fishery is strong and thriving. According to Captain Jack Duffy, Leelanau has a shortage of fishermen, not of fish.
Just an average trip. I don't. They've come a lot faster, but you know, a couple hours, 2-3 hours. That's not bad fishing for 10-12 fish.
How long is this lake trout fishery? When does it start?
Well, usually around the first week of May. You can count on getting them shallow water, and then they start to take a change first part of June, and they start going deeper, and that's what we experienced today. Last week we went from 15 feet to 75 feet. So.
And they hold up all summer?
Yeah, we'll only fish for 2, maybe 3 more weeks, and then forget about lake trout and concentrate on salmon.
You can't get them much calmer day, Jack.
No, it's really been nice here the last few weeks, and we've had a lot of nice weather and weather that's been kind of screwy. Where I don't think we've had so much north wind. I can't remember so much north wind.
You don't lose a lot of days up here.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing that we've got over a lot of the major ports all up and down the lake. We've got the islands that lay out west of Leland, anywhere from 10 to 17 miles. And we've got a couple of bays, Sleeping Bear and Good Harbor, that if the wind's blowing, we've always got a place that we can tuck underneath and get our trips in.
Right now, there's no salmon out there to get.
No, I wouldn't say that. There's a few salmon out there, but to warrant a fishery to where we're going to go out there and concentrate on a half-day trip, I don't think there's enough. We just got to be patient. Like I say, a few more weeks, a little southwest wind, a little warmer water, the fish will be here, and they'll be here in great numbers. We expect a good year.
By now, Jack and the few other anglers who fish Leland are switching over to salmon. Not because the lake trout aren't there, but because the salmon are. Lakers live on the bottom. They're tasty, but not as lively on the line as a king or a coho. But Jack does catch some big ones.
I think this past weekend, I don't think I've seen, there's probably 20 fish between 14 and 18 pounds taken out of Leland here on some of the different charter boats. And it's not unusual, but some of the smaller fish that we got, average size, you're going to see all up and down the lake. And obviously, if we didn't catch the small ones, we wouldn't catch the big ones down the road sometime.
What's the secret to getting the bigger ones? Is there one?
Oh, I think obviously if a person takes the time to run wire line, where you really work the bottom hard, that's where the big fish are going to be.
A little more patience. You just got to have a little more patience to run that wire line. It's a slower process getting it out, and it's somewhat of a slow process fishing it too, and being able to detect the hits on it.
Well, this is true, and especially when the downriggers are working, all you find that you're maneuvering around the wire, and it just it seems to get in the way all the time. But if it, like we did pick up one fish on wire today, and so it was worth running. But most days the fishing is good enough that we will not even run wire line.
Well, the other thing, you can't run wire when there's a lot of boats around too.
This is true, but this is something we don't experience that much fishing out of Leland too.
What did we see? 1 or 2 boats out there?
Well, there's a couple boats out there this morning. And of course, you got to remember it's a weekday also, so to see a lot of boats, I would say the most I've ever seen maybe is 30 boats out there.
30 boats in all that water?
Right.
One thing you learn with lake trout is not to horse them in. Our cameraman, OJ, was reefing in this laker like a king salmon. And just watch what happens.
Move back.
Pulled the lure and the cowbells right out of its mouth. When any fish is near the boat, you can't put pressure on the line if the fish is facing the boat. The hook's gonna pop right out, so go easy. Let it keep its mouth closed and head under the water.
Lose them?
That's how you learn to be gentle when you're netting a fish. Now look at OJ on his next one, playing it very gingerly. That's what you have to do always if the fish is coming towards you, and especially if you're on a short line close to the boat.
All right, number 10.
Number 10 it was.
Hey, good job, Oj.
Nice going.
That was a 10th fish filling the limit for everybody, but it wasn't the largest of the day. The biggest one was actually the first fish caught by Carl Salling from Cadillac. His laker hit right off the bat after the lines were set. It was down deep, and it put up a good battle. Lake trout are heavy-bodied fish, rather lethargic compared to a salmon, but anytime you get one over 10 pounds, you have a good battle. The first glimpse of the size of this fish was when its tail broke the surface. Right there. Ha, a big, slow-moving forked tail attached to a big fish.
Oh, that's a lake trout. Holy cat.
Holy Frank, good job.
Jeez, old Pete, swing him right back. Holy, that's gotta go 16 pounds.
15, 16 pounds. Right?
Holy cat.
Nice
Master
job.
angler minimum for lake trout is 16 pounds. This one came up 1 pound short. What about measuring its length for a Trost Fishing Award? Well, I wish Bob and Carl would have remembered that. They forgot about the length that might have made it. But speaking of trophies, Captain Jack Duffy
Nice
has
job,
held the
Jack.
state brown trout record
Boy, I
for a
have to
number
get
of
that one
years
weighed.
until recently, so he knows trophy fish, and he certainly knows fishing off of Leland.
trout.
And he enjoys fishing where there's plenty of protected water, few boats, and lots of fish. As for this lake trout, it borders the size you'd want to hang on your wall.
You should get that one mounted. Whoa.
Pike and walleye fishing has been real good. You might want to get outdoors and try some of that because you, at this time of year, might catch a big one and land a spot in our trophy book. Don't you just love to see a fish that will draw a crowd? I think the camera drew this crowd, but that bluegill is a whopper. Joe Higgs from Canton caught it at the end of June last year from Monroe Lake in Sheboygan County, 11 inches long. It weighed 1 pound, 10 ounces. Wow, it's a beautiful gill. Not so much in the looks category, at least to American anglers, is this huge carp. It was taken in the clear, cool waters of Lake Michigan up in Mackinac County by Kent Hannert from Livonia. At 26 pounds, it fell to Kent's deftly placed shot with his bow and arrow. Here's a nice steelhead that was taken July 4th weekend a year ago by Tim Decker from Holland, trolling a loco spoon in Lake Michigan. Now, they began trolling at 9 in the morning, according to Tim. A half hour later, the 16-pound, 10-ouncer hit put up a 25-minute battle and made the trophy book. And exactly 1 year ago this coming weekend, Ed Subler from Muskegon landed what turned out to be the second largest Chinook salmon of 1985, 41 inches long, 34 pounds, 4 ounces. Ed caught it off his home port of Muskegon in 100 feet of water on a Southport slammer. He was a tournament prize winner, too, thousands of dollars in cash and a new pickup truck. Just think, salmon like that are cruising the depths right now. Here's a catch made about 7 weeks ago by Mike Avery from Saginaw, a white bass that was 17 inches long, 2 pounds, 7 ounces, taken on a Rapala from the Tittabawassee River. For a white bass, that's a dandy. And for a northern pike, here's a dandy too. Dean Latinen from Ishpeming was still fishing a smelt in the Dead River Basin. 8:30 in the morning, May 19th. Now, the line slipped away, and Dean was soon battling a 42-inch, 20-pound northern pike. That's how they grow those northerns up in the UP. And this largemouth bass was undoubtedly heavier before it spawned. As it sits there, it weighed only 5 pounds, 2 ounces, short of Master Angler, but it's 22 inches long, and that gave it the minimum qualifying length for a Stroh's Fishing Award. So Ed Thurkettle from Sparta just made the trophy book. Just as we began, we're going to end with a bluegill. Another one, 1 pound, 10 ounces, almost 12 inches long. It was caught May 24th in Loon Lake, Oscoda County, by Dave Grenia from Flint. Now, this is a historic moment in 1986. Somebody wearing a Tigers hat is going to come out number one. It's Dave Grenia, an undaunted Tiger fan who's also our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Angler of the Week.
It's no secret that a number of sportsmen, hunters, and fishermen haven't really been too happy lately with the Department of Natural Resources. They keep thinking that maybe they're getting the short end of the stick. The department spends a lot of time with environmental enforcement of laws, water and air pollution laws. It doesn't seem to be spending quite so much time worried about sportsmen's issues. In fact, a number of sportsmen have said that maybe the department ought to be split. Notables like Mort Neff and Commissioner Kerry Kammer. Bill Rustum is here, who was part of the action team assembled by Director Gordon Geyer to make recommendations on DNR structure. And I can't believe it, Bill, but you did not recommend that the department be split.
No, we didn't, Bob. We didn't recommend that the 20th department be created. Rather, we recommended that the two functions of the department, its responsibilities for environmental protection and resource management, be split internally. It was our judgment, after talking to about 300 or 400 people in this state, leaders of conservation organizations, retirees of the department, people in the department, business interests, and others, that to recommend the creation of a new department of state government would literally throw the whole issue of how the Department of Natural Resources and conservation programs would be implemented in Michigan into real chaos.
So you're just separating it within the department instead of making two separate departments.
That's
is
right.
What you're
We're recommending that that a split along functional lines. What we say is that the department really has two separate and distinct functions. It has a responsibility to regulate for environmental protection and to manage resources, and that it be organized along those lines.
What about one of the beefs too that we've all had? Is there are a lot of people in the Lansing offices and not enough in the field? Did you address that?
We sure did. We proposed that considerably more authority be placed in the hands of the present, what are called regional managers. We recommended that they be renamed deputy directors of the department and be on a par with the two deputy directors that would be created under the scheme we've
In other words,
recognized.
The three people in southern Lower Michigan, northern Lower Michigan, and the Upper Peninsula have the same power.
Would have the
same
status as the two deputy directors that are in Lansing.
Okay, conservation officers. One thing in the report you said conservation officers or environmental enforcement division, let's put it this way, should be moved into an environmental protection bureau. So you don't have, in my understanding, you will not have conservation officers enforcing water and air pollution laws?
Well, that's part of the thinking behind what we're doing. We didn't go as far as to recommend that specifically, but it is clear to us that you can separate the environmental enforcement functions from the traditional conservation officer's job. And we recommended that the Environmental Enforcement Division go to the Environmental Protection Bureau, and the Law Division, the conservation officers, be under the Resource Management
Or Hunting and
Bureau.
Fishing Conservation
Correct.
Bureau. Okay. The other thing, too, is that I saw, and I've heard some people openly worried about, is you want to take the division chiefs, like we have in law, in fish, wildlife,
everywhere,
and give them one-year contracts. Don't you think that might politicize, rather than giving them civil service protection, giving them one-year contracts, it might politicize their jobs a little bit more?
Bob, I think that their jobs already are plenty political. No, number one. And number two, we really believe that, and one of the strong points in our report is that the director of the department has to have the ability to run that department.
We've gone through a couple of directors in the last couple of years.
And that means that the director of the department has to have the right to name the people who's working for him, particularly in key divisions like the deputy director position, and has to have a say in the hiring and firing of people at the division chief level. And we firmly believe that it is critical to give the director the ability to run that department, that those division chiefs be made more accountable to the Department of Natural Resources and to the director in order that it can function smoothly.
We'll have you back when some of these recommendations begin to be implemented to see what you have to say about them then.
Thank you, Bob.
You know, Bob, People write us some really good questions
They sure
here,
do.
which we put in the digest. And here's one on trolling. You know, we do a lot of trolling on the show, a boat full of people. And Georgia Wheaton from Ludington says, in a boat that's trolling, do all passengers have to have a fishing license?
No, only those that are engaged in fishing have to have the fishing license. But if you're going to touch a rod or bait a hook or even really steer the boat, aiding and abetting in the trolling, you should have a license. The safest thing to do to keep from getting pinched or getting a ticket is to sit on your hands if you haven't got a license.
What the heck? You really ought to get a license and join us fishing. It's a ball.
Absolutely. Question from Mike Brown of Traverse City. Freddie, he wants to know, how long can a deer live if it isn't shot or if it doesn't freeze to death?
Well, maybe not long at all, because there are many other hazards, parasites and diseases and malnutrition that can affect deer. In fact, it affects probably 15–20% of the fawns, even in a decent year, may die due to malnutrition or a problem, you know, right after birth. But if a deer is kept in captivity, not too many deer have this luxury. They might live up to 20 years, but most of them may be 10 years in captivity, and in the wild, it's only a couple years,
Sure.
even without hunting. That's the story on that. Now, folks, it's your turn. Let's see if you can answer this question in our outdoor quiz.
Who manufactured the first semi-automatic shotgun and when was it introduced? The Browning Gun Company of Morgan, Utah introduced the first semi-automatic shotgun to the sporting world in 1903. It was the Browning Auto 5. Part of the mystique and romance of shotgun muzzleloading is the actual filling of the front stuffers with powder and shot, which must take place in a very set order.
All right, I'm going to use a charge of 90 grains.
This will be equivalent to what? A 12 gauge?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Drop that down the muzzle.
Okay.
Put the lid on there. Now the powder is loaded.
Right.
Next you have a wad.
We'll take a compression wad and we soak it in a little soapy water.
For what reason?
It helps clean the barrel and helps make a better seal. And this is a short start that we'll use to push
Get
that
the
down a
wad
little
started.
bit. Long ramrod.
Boy, you can see how long it takes to shoot around a trap already, just the reloading.
Okay, we've got our wad in. Now we'll put in about 1 1/8 ounce of shot. This is number 7.5.
7.5, and I'll, this is just a regular shot that you'd load in a regular 12,
Right.
20 gauge shotgun. Now we have the shot.
Now we have to put in an over-the-shot wad. That keeps the shot from rolling back out the barrel. Use our short start on that.
And put the rod all the way down.
And it's loaded.
And it's loaded, but not ready to fire yet, because this is a flintlock, so we have to put a primer,
Right, you have to prime.
prime in there. Well, let's go up to the range here, and I'll take a shot. Okay, stepping up here to position number 1. Gary, after all we've done, we're still not ready to shoot yet. Here, you can come around here so we can see what has to be done. This is the flint that strikes the steel that makes the spark, but we have to prime it.
Okay, this is a priming mechanism. We have this filled with 4F powder. It's very fine, much finer than the 2F we loaded the gun with. All right, and we're going to pour a small amount, actually, into the pan.
This is quite a process.
And then what we usually do is we tap it and kind of spread it around. And
Pull this down,
pull the frizzen back,
frizzen back, and cock it.
and
I'm ready to go. Okay, go ahead, Gary. Pull back the trap. It's loaded. The target's in there. When I say pull, the target's going to fly out, and this is my first time shotgunning with a... Anything that I should expect, Gary?
No.
Just follow through as normal. Okay. Pull! Well, Kathy, Margaret Freeman from Sanford sent us a recipe, told us to bag it.
Yeah, we did.
Literally. This is called salmon in a sack. I'll get it open here. There we go. There it is. It doesn't look like much on a paper bag, does it?
It's good, though. It's moist. It really stays moist, doesn't dry out at all, even though it's a brown paper bag.
This isn't quite as complicated as building a ship in a bottle.
Not quite.
But almost. Kathy, let's show them exactly how to do it.
Alrighty.
And this is a tasty way to fix salmon. one of these fish right here is that brown trout right
Yes,
there.
with the skin on.
Fella gave it to us who got it off the pier in Ludington. Is it great?
You could use butter and rutabaga. We're going to use potato.
Some white wine.
Some white wine, some green pepper, carrot, and onion. And these are all julienne cut. They're not chopped, so they're the long slices. Dill weed, salt and pepper.
Those plus a stapler.
A stapler to hold your bag shut.
Some paper bags.
Salt and pepper your fillets, and you add more if you want. You probably would add more pepper. Some dill weed. Now, this is in a jar. Now, you could use fresh dill if you wanted. In another month, you'll be able to.
Well, when you cook it in a moist method of cookery, it takes on a good dill flavor.
Yes, yep.
What do you think, Bob? Your mouth is full. You want to talk in a minute? Okay.
Just go sprinkle these with dill weed. Okay, we're going to do a cutaway bag here, just so you can actually see what's going on in here.
But Margaret says that you should slip it in the bag and then put about an ounce of the vegetables
Of all the
on top.
vegetables, of each one, right.
Now, she says julienne cut is actually matchstick size, which is even smaller than this.
It would be, yes.
Just takes a little longer to
Yeah.
slice them up.
Okay, now you're going to use clarified butter, and that's with the fat removed. And you can see it there. Just,
So that's the fat,
yep, it's in all butter.
and I wonder why she wants us to remove that.
It does taste better. It's actually drawn butter.
Drawn butter, that's
Yep.
what it's called?
Yep,
And there it is, clear drawn butter that you can spoon out, what, about a tablespoon or so?
right. Well, about a ½ ounce on each fillet. And then about a ½ ounce of wine.
The white wine.
Just a dry white wine, yep.
Oh, you dribbled that all over there, Kath. Down the neck of
I'm
the
glad I didn't try to pour that into the sack. Then staple your bag shut. And you could bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes in the oven on a cookie sheet.
And this is how it turns out. You might want to slip it off the bag before serving it. But, you know, it's interesting, Kathy. We've cooked recipes similar to this in foil and also done things like this in the oven. And both of them are good, but this is sort of in between as far as moisture goes.
It does stay moist. Yep.
You can see
I
right
think with
there.
the skin on it stays even a little bit more moist than if these pieces with it off.
Well, what do you think, Bob?
Well, you know,
You have just a pile of bones
Ma,
that
that's
float there.
right, that's right. Ma sent me to school with a lot of brown paper bags when I was a kid. If she'd ever sent this stuff, I'd have become addicted. That's good. Those vegetables too. You didn't just cook to be jabbers out of them. I mean, they taste like good crisp vegetables. And the fish, there ain't a fishy thing about
No,
it.
not
It's
at all.
great.
Salmon in a sack. You can try it with the salmon that maybe you'll catch this weekend. They're moving closer into shore. Get outdoors. It's a great place to be. We'll see you next week.
Salmon in a sack is an excellent recipe, and you can clip it out from page 26 of Fred Trost's Outdoor Digest magazine, along with all 9 July-August recipes and information on the 9 TV shows. Articles on fishing, hunting, and shooting are in every issue, plus a listing of the biggest fish caught during the 2-month period are in the trophy book. A form with all the rules so that you can qualify for a Stroh's Hunting or Fishing Award is on page 41, and you'll find information on all our upcoming Outdoors Club events.
Right there. Ha, a big, slow-moving forked tail attached to a big fish.
Oh, that's a lake trout. Holy cow.
Holy Frank, good job.
Jeez, oh, Pete, swing him right back. Holy, that's gotta go 16 pounds.
15, 16 pounds.
Holy cats.
Master angler minimum for lake trout is 16 pounds. This one came up 1 pound short. What about state brown trout record for a number of years until recently? So he knows trophy fish, and he certainly knows fishing off of Leland. And he enjoys fishing where there's plenty of protected water, few boats, and lots of fish. As for this lake trout, it borders the size you'd want to hang on your wall.